så är det kanske inte den bästa bilden.
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, little tail wag. Oh, little tail wag on your big paw.
The Turn of the Screw. It took forever to find this one. It must have been assigned by somebody, I don't know, a university program or something, because this one that has some extra stuff was the only copy that I could find when I went looking for it. But that's okay. I like some historical context. So I've been working on that one. A friend of mine lent me this, which is about, what is it about? Oh, the whole kultur thing that was happening in Sweden a while back. Yeah, I still don't really understand what this is about, so maybe it will be good for me to read a book about it, and I will understand what that whole thing was. Stockholm's undergång. So this is a bunch of creepy stories about Stockholm being destroyed or being attacked by zombies or something, I guess. I don't know. I just grabbed it because I had never heard of it before, and I was like, I should do some reading in Swedish. I'm reading in, I'm reading a lot of horror lately, so here we go. This one sounded super cheesy, but also maybe interesting. I don't know. I'm into the whole boarding school creepiness. I did check this out a while ago and haven't gotten around to reading it because I've been too busy with all of this other stuff. So I've been on a huge folk horror dark fairy tales kick lately. First I read this one. Yeah, it was fine. It was weird, but it was not super weird. Not a lot happened, which I don't mind if I really like the world that it's in. But this one was a bit like, okay, what is the message here? The guy she's really into is maybe evil, maybe, but she's okay with that. I don't know. I just didn't really get it, I guess. This was fun. But not amazing. I would have liked this a lot more if I was actually, a teenager, which I think it's meant for. I would have liked more exploration of the creepy stuff that's happening in the woods, right? This one, I read some of her other books, T. Kingfishers, and I thought they were fine, great concepts, not always amazingly written. I feel like this one was maybe a bit better, but still it kind of goes into that where you explain too much about the creepiness and then it's not as creepy anymore. But at the same time, I did like that we got to explore more about this, idea. Then this one, I was hesitant about because I was not impressed with House of Salt and Sorrows. I thought it was forgettable and not that great. I really enjoyed this one. A lot of the reviews complain about oh, well, nothing happens and it's the most boring Little House on the Prairie episode or something. And honestly, I really liked that. I really liked all the stories of, her doing the beekeeping and preparing for winter and all this jazz and, the creepy newcomers to the town. It's not scary, terrifying scary, but it has great creepy vibes the whole time, the whole way through. And you're just thinking oh, how are they going to make it through winter? Is there something supernatural, or is it just their, neighbors and humans being horrible and all that jazz? And then there is this one, which I have not read yet. It's quite new, I have to say. I like the cover. I was actually a little surprised that this one was in at the library. I would say anything from about 2 years ago you'll find super easily at the Stockholm libraries. Anything, that is a 2021, 2022 release date might be slightly less likely to find. Although apparently they have some things that are out super early. So I kind of got started on this a little bit, this whole mini genre, I guess you would say, because years and years ago I read and loved Uprooted, and then Spinning Silver came out and I loved that one. And then I just recently read, what were they called? Tales from the Hinterland. That's what it was called. That's what those books reminded me, or those were the books that I thought of when I read the back of this one, because it's a little bit, or it sounds a little bit like a little modern fantasy horror. Anyway, Tales from the Hinterland I really enjoyed, which I was kind of surprised, because I don't always love the whole, more modern fantasy where they're kind of in the modern world and that sort of thing, but those were so delightfully like creepy and a little bit disturbing, and I was so delighted to find that the author had actually published a book which was just a book of the scary, creepy, disturbing fairy tales that the whole world is based on. And honestly, that was probably my favorite part of that whole series, although I might have been able to read more. And the other thing is this one. Look at this giant brick of a book. This one was, so of course there's like about 1 million copies of Jane Austen's novels available in the city library, and I was like, the illustrated works, I want that one. And perfect, because I've read Emma, but I haven't read Sense and Sensibility or Northanger Abbey. So I was like, perfect, I'll get that one. And I look and it's checked out already. And I was like, it's fine, it shouldn't take that long to get it back. I'll just request it, because requesting is free now. So I requested it, and then I had to wait like 5 million years for whoever else to be done reading it. And so I was going around grumbling to myself, like, who has that book? Who in this city is taking like 5 million years to read it? And I was thinking this because earlier this year, I was like, I should reread, Pride and Prejudice, which I've already read, but then I should also read all of these other ones, I want to be a Jane Austen girly, right? So I read Pride and Prejudice again, loved it. I read Emma, loved it. I read Persuasion, which was a lot more melancholy, but I loved it even more. I love how, the main thing is I love how relatable these people's lives and experiences are, like, 200 and some years later. And so now, and I actually read several of those, because they're available free online. I read most of Emma on my phone, like while I was traveling. And I read it super quick. So I was like, surely this can't take this long. Anyway, now I'm reading Sense and Sensibility and Northanger Abbey, and it's taking me forever. And the illustrations are like, they're never of what I want to see illustrations of. I'm like, I want to see illustrations of the ladies, dresses, and there's just like so many ugly dudes. I don't want the illustrations of the ugly dudes. Sorry. Like, more like this, please. Thank you. And the other thing with Northanger Abbey, it's billed as like, oh, it's her commentary on the Gothic novel. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. I love a good Gothic novel. I've loved all of her other books. It's gonna be so good. And I'm like, okay, we're on this is chapter 17, and this is the first mention that we might be going to Northanger Abbey. Chapter 17 of 31. I'm like, this is more than halfway through the book, and we haven't even gotten to the Gothic locale yet. I'm a little disappointed. And honestly, Sense and Sensibility is not grabbing me either. I did love that 90s movie, which was very 90s.
So let's see. I actually have 2 more books. I also got Mexican Gothic. I believe it was in... Oh, yeah, here we go. I believe it was in horror. It was not that scary. I'm fairly easily scared, and I didn't find this super creepy. A lot of people didn't like it when I'm reading the reviews on Goodreads. A lot of people didn't like it or found it really disturbing, and I was a bit like, have you read any other horror books recently? Because it really wasn't that bad. So yeah, not that creepy. I actually quite enjoyed, it's not a setting, either time or place wise, that I have read a lot about. So I really enjoyed that. And I don't know, people didn't like the main character, but I did. She kind of like somehow manages to keep her cool the whole time, which I like. Then I also grabbed this one, which is fairly new, I believe. I chose it 100% because I thought the color was gorgeous. I haven't really started reading it yet, but you know what? Wilder Girls was one of the few books that I didn't finish. I can't say that I particularly disliked it. I just could never get into it. And I read like 70, 80 pages, and I was just like, I'll just return it to the library, I guess. So we'll see how this goes. Maybe, maybe not. So far, I'm a little bit like, well, I'm not really connecting to any of the characters, which I didn't with the Wilder Girls either.